Accessibility, Unlocking Our Potential. Physical disabilities. In the U.S., about 74.6 million people have some type of physical disability. This means assistive technology is vital to more than a third of people with disabilities being able to take care of themselves at home. Three main causes of physical disabilities are birth defects, injuries, and diseases. We're in this together, people living with challenge and succeeding. Stephen Hawking, born January 8th of 1942, died March 14th of 2018. At the age of 21, Stephen Hawking was diagnosed with ALS, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease. He was told he wouldn't live to see 25. For 30 years, he was a full professor of mathematics at Cambridge University. He directed the school's Center for Theoretical Cosmology and received dozens of honorary degrees. He's best known, however, for his popular books on science, such as A Brief History of Time. He's also known for his pioneering work in black holes and relativity. He used a single cheek muscle attached to a speech-generating device to continue to lecture and teach and research. Christopher Reeve, born September 25th of 1952, died October 10th of 2004. He is best known for his performance as Superman in the films of the late 1970s and early 1980s. In 1995, he was competing in an equestrian event and was thrown from his horse, landing on his head. His spinal cord was damaged, and as a result, he was a quadriplegic and dependent on a portable ventilator to breathe. Following his accident, he continued acting and directing, while using his celebrity status to advocate for those with spinal cord injuries. Franklin Roosevelt, born January 30th of 1882, died April 12th of 1945. In 1921, Franklin Roosevelt was a rising star in the Democratic Party when polio struck him and left him with paralyzed legs. Determined that he would walk again so that he could resume his political career, he set himself with a stiff regime of exercise. He never did achieve his goal of walking, but, urged by his wife and a close associate, he re-entered public life. At a time when disabled people were often sent to asylums, Roosevelt and his insistence on good cheer won the hearts of the voters who elected him president not once, but 4 times. Roosevelt led the country through the Great Depression and World War II, and never ceased to advocate for the disabled. Joni Eareckson Tada, born October 15th of 1949. As an active athletic teenager, Joni loved sports. When she was 17, she dove into shallow water and crushed part of her spinal cord. This accident left her a quadriplegic, unable to move any part of her body from the shoulders down. During her rehab, she learned to paint while holding a brush in her teeth. Her art began to sell, and she was asked to write a book. That was the start of her career as a Christian author and speaker. She has written many books, recorded several musical albums, and is a disability advocate through her organization Joni and Friends. Frida Kahlo, born July 6, 1907, died July 13th of 1954. She was born in Mexico and suffered from polio as a child. This damaged her right leg and foot. When she was 17, a traffic accident left her with severe injuries to her hips and spine, dependent on a wheelchair. Following her accident, she began painting, mostly self-portraits. Many of her works mix realism and fantasy and explore themes such as identity, gender, class, and race. Her work has been studied by art students around the world, and she is the first Mexican artist to have work displayed in the Louvre. Some of her most well-known self-portraits show herself in her wheelchair. Esther Vergeer, born July 18th of 1981. Throughout her childhood, she suffered from headaches and other pains. After several years, doctors discovered malformations of blood vessels in her spine. Surgery to correct the problem left her unable to move her legs. As part of her rehab, she learned to play volleyball, basketball, and tennis in a wheelchair. She went to win 162 singles and 134 double titles in international competitions, making her one of the most highly decorated para-athletes ever. Nick Vujicic, born December 4th of 1982. When Nick was born without limbs, he wasn't expected to survive. Nearly everyone with tetraamelia syndrome barely makes it past infancy, but Nick did. Throughout his life, he was determined that his disability was not going to limit him in life. Even though he had no legs, he was born with 2 tiny feet, one with fused toes. Surgery separated those toes, and he learned to use them to perform many tasks. With the support of his family, he managed to graduate from Griffith University and found Life Without Limbs, an international ministry serving those who are missing more or one limb. Resource from disabilityfriendlylv.com. Types of physical disabilities. Quadriplegia refers to the loss of functions to arms, legs, and trunk. Students with this disability have limited or no use of their arms or hands, and often use motorized wheelchairs. Paraplegia refers to the loss of functions to the lower extremities and the lower trunk. Cerebral palsy is the result of damage to the brain prior to or shortly after birth. It can prevent or inhibit walking and cause a lack of muscle coordination, spasms, and speech difficulty. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS. This is more commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. It is a terminal and progressive motor neuron disease. ALS specifically targets and kills the motor neurons responsible for controlling the vast majority of the skeletal muscles in the human body, which eventually leads to respiratory failure and death. Hemiplegia. This means that one side of your body is paralyzed. A similar medical term is hemiparesis. This means a weakness on one side of the body. Children with hemiplegia, the paralysis in the body occurs on the opposite side of the affected part of the brain. Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease of the central nervous system, which includes the brain and spinal cord. The symptoms of this disease can be quite extreme, including fatigue, coordination difficulty, weakness, tingling, inflicted sensation, vision issues, bladder problems, and impairment to cognition and mood shifts. Resource from disability.illinois.edu. Myth: people with disabilities cannot lead a full and productive life. Fact: people with disabilities are capable of fully participating in community life. The challenge is to focus on a person's ability, not their limitations. Assistive technology. Smart home technology. Tech like Google Home or Amazon Echo help people with limited use of their arms and hands to be able to use their computer or phone easily. These devices can perform an array of routine tasks, like make an appointment, play music, tell you the weather, make movie recommendations, and respond to basic questions expressed out loud by the user about events, persons, or any kind of data available on the internet. Sip and puff systems. These are useful for people with paralysis or fine motor skill disabilities. With these, the user can operate a computer or a mobile device or even a wheelchair with their mouth. The spit and puff system behaves like a joystick and is moved in any direction with the mouth. They can even interpret a breath of the user, like on-off operations, and an on-screen keyboard allows the user to type anything using the same movements. Mobility. People who have physical disabilities may need help with mobility. Devices intended to help with mobility include wheelchairs, walkers, scooters, crutches, canes, and orthotic devices. Depending on the severity and type of mobile impairment, a different device may be used by an individual. For example, an individual with quadriplegia may use an electric wheelchair controlled by an adaptive switch or mouth stick or a head wand, and an injured veteran may use a prosthetic device. Eye tracking devices are communication and control systems that follow the movement of eyes and allow individuals with disabilities that restrict speech to navigate through the computer or mobile device with only eye movements. This assistive technology device allows users with physical disabilities to interact with the world with their eyes only. Special software allows the person to type by looking at control icons or data displayed on the screen, and may include word completion technology to speed up the process. The user can then generate speech either by typing the message or by choosing from a selection of phrases. These systems can be expensive, probably today in the thousands of US dollars. So they are less common than the less sophisticated devices, such as the mouth stick and head wands. Voice recognition and speech generation Are other assistive technologies useful for people with physical disabilities who cannot enter instructions intended for computers with keyboards or touchscreens? Some specialized voice transcription software is used for commanding data or instructions to the computer, and this allows people with different abilities to use their computer or mobile devices differently and more effectively by only talking to them. With devices equipped with this voice recognition technology, it is also possible to create text documents. Speech generating devices allow them to communicate aloud by means of electronic device that is able to create speech from text, icons, and images. These technologies depend on clarity in the pronunciation of words or speech, so it may not be useful with a person who cannot vocalize properly.